Hello everyone, how you doing today? We're going to talk about why should CEOs care about customer success? Oftentimes, companies invest in customer success and they often get underfunded, underperform, not get the budget that they need, not really showing as much value as they're supposed to. I wanted to invite Chris Hicken, CEO of nuffsaid, to really share his perspective on this topic. What is really happening? Why is this happening? And how should customer success executives avoid this issue? Hey, Chris, welcome to the program. Welcome to the show.
I'm delighted to be here, and this is a topic I'm very passionate about, so we should have a great discussion today.
Why do we see so often customer success programs just don't get this lift off?
The trends that I keep seeing over and over again about why customer success doesn't get a seat at the table it's kind of twofold. The most common reason is because customer success leaders are spending almost all of their time focusing on running a better, more effective customer success department. So they're spending time on things like better health scores and product usage data, NPS and playbooks. While those are all good and important to have in place, oftentimes those are not the things that will have the biggest impact on churn. Many times the factors that impact churn are outside of their control. So for example, the stability of the product or the breadth of the features or competition or the ICP that we're acquiring. That's kind of reason number one, is overly focused on our own department. And number two, in some cases, the CEO just doesn't really value customer success. And so it's difficult for the customer success leader to make a case for having a bigger impact at the executive team.
How can you tell if your company is not really invested and seeing value in customer success in general? Can you spot that during the interview process if you're interviewing to be a customer success executive?
Sure. If you're interviewing, or even now, if you look at your company, you can ask, I think, some basic questions around, who does the customer success leader report to? Obviously, the worst situation would be if it reports into CRO and the top CS leader has a VP title. The problem with that, of course, is that all customer insights are filtered through the lens of someone who's focused on new business acquisition. The best outcome would be someone who reports to the CEO, ideally a chief customer officer, but VP of customer success is fine, but certainly a member of the executive team reporting to CEO. That would be the ideal. But there are other questions too, like who owns renewals? If customer success doesn't own renewals, that means customer success, frankly, doesn't own a number that matters to the business. How are health scores calculated? If health scores use primarily things like NPS, product usage data, those are kind of I think the standards for many health scores. Those aren't going to be particularly good early indicators of risk in the portfolio. If the health scores focus on customer-centric metrics like customer receiving value, understanding the experience of their quality of the product, making sure the customer feels like the product solves a severe and ongoing problem, that's a sign that the company is looking at leading indicators of risk as opposed to lagging indicators. Other questions you could ask are things like, how does customer feedback influence product decisions? How often is customer feedback reviewed by the CEO or the executive team? How does the company measure whether or not the customer has actually received value? Who's responsible for retention? So who owns retention at the company? What percentage of revenue is spent retaining customers compared to acquiring new ones? I think that's a quick way to assess how much a company actually values customer success.
Before we continue, don't forget, subscribe to our YouTube channel and smash that notification button so that you don't miss out on any new videos. Let's say we have a clear understanding of how much value is actually placed around customer success. If there's not enough value or centricity around post-sale and specifically customer success, what have you seen some of the impact that we're seeing or the churn reasons that start to emerge when there's not enough investment in customer success and customer success does not have a seat at the table?
It might be good to first talk about what some of the symptoms are of CS not having the power it deserves to actually impact churn. Some of those things are, for example, when the product team is building whatever they want and CS has to spend their time setting expectations correctly with the customer, that's a sign that CS doesn't have enough influence with product. When there are consistent competitive pressure warnings, competitors are coming in with a stronger feature set pricing with no rapid response, that's a sign customer success doesn't have enough influence. Also a common churn reason. CS doesn't have a strong say in the definition of the ideal customer profile. So the sales team decides who gets onboarded. CS is not involved in screening or making sure that the use cases are ones that we support. That's a sign that CS doesn't have enough influence. Pricing in many companies, marketing owns pricing, product marketing, and are oftentimes working very closely with the head of sales to determine what pricing should be. Very little effort or attention is given to how pricing impacts existing customers. I think maybe the last sign is when customer success every year is asked to tighten the belt and get more efficient, the budget continues to get squeezed every year. I think that's another sign that the CS leader doesn't have the power and influence to drive and improve retention rates.
You're talking about having customer success, getting their budget squeezed every year. How come sales and marketing always seem to get their budget in check, but customer success tend to struggle on average a lot more? Why do you think this is happening?
Well, first of all, I think this is very much under our control and our fault that this happens every year. And the reason why is most of our conversations with the CFO revolve around what I call rule of thumb metrics. Hey, we're going to hire one CSM per 100 accounts, or we're going to hire one CSM per $2 million in revenue. When the CFO has metrics like that to focus on, of course, their natural instinct is great. You did one CSM per 2 million this year. I want one CSM per 2.5 million next year. I want to see you improve processes. We're going to give you budget for tools, and we want you to be much more efficient. So we set ourselves up for a conversation where it's always about efficiency, which is the wrong approach. The better approach as customer leaders is to instead talk about how investors value businesses these days. If you look at the major categories of investors, Wall Street, private equity, venture capital, all of those investors have made a shift the way that they value businesses to focus on both growth and retention rates. I've been reading public company 10Ks. Of the top 10 public SaaS companies, 9 of them reported retention rates in their 10Ks as a signal of the business's overall health. If we can make the pitch about investments in CS being about driving enterprise value and valuation instead of like an extra $100,000 this year, that's how we can make a case for getting much more budget in customer success and setting company-wide goals around retention so that everyone owns a piece of this success, not having it all fall on the shoulders of the customer success leader.
So you would change the factor in which you base the budget request from CSM ratio, which actually suggests efficiency and productivity, towards lagging indicators related to what's important to investors and the overall evaluation of the company?
Yes, because that is how investors are assessing companies today. Let's tie our results to the things the CEO and the CFO care about. What they care about is growth rate, retention rate, and company value.
Because company value and even churn rate, one could argue, is not only impacted by customer success. Would it be hard for the customer success executive to show direct impact on those lagging indirect metrics?
Customer success leader, what I would advocate for doing is showing some thresholds or tiers of retention rate and how that impacts overall company valuations. So for example, if we're at an 85% gross retention rate, this is our company valuation. If we get it up to 90, this is what would happen. If we get it up to 92, this is what would happen. As a business, we're all looking at retention rate as one of the key factors for driving value. So first of all, as an executive team, total focus on that as one of the levers for driving up company value. Separately, on top of that, the customer success leader will be accountable for arming their peers on the executive team with the data that they need to make better decisions. So that means better arming the product leader with information about bugs and features that will impact churn, the sales leader with what types of customers renew well, so what an ideal customer profile looks like, the marketing team with pricing feedback. Over time, the success leader should be able to show that improvements in each of those functions lead to have a direct correlation with the number of churn events that the company experiences for each of those reasons. Assuming that the company is collecting churn reasons, which most companies are, the success leader should be able to clearly show a reduction in churn for pricing or for competition for pricing. The pricing's too expensive. So I think that's how the success leader can demonstrate how their efforts in different areas have reduced the churn in targeted ways.
Another thing to show is, with relations to the first one, the impact on the evaluation, you could also show, depending on how many CSMs you have, you can get to a certain coverage. because we know a lot of customer success executives only get enough CSM to cover 30%, 20%, but it's almost never 100% of the customers, especially when you have 3 tiers of customers. Some of them are very low ARR. Things showing, demonstrating visually the impact that you could have on the business on upsell and revenues if you get more coverage is also a great exercise in getting the budget that you need and showcasing the value that you're going to have and the impact. And as for the things that they need to do, I think those are great tips on how can we expand the value that we bring to the company overall. And I think this is really your main point for this conversation, is that customer success executives are way too focused on what their department is doing versus how can they impact a transformation for the entire organization, from the product team to marketing team to the finance with regards to billing potentially. Did I capture that correctly?
That's exactly right. The whole point is take our head out of the sand, look around the company, see where the biggest areas, the biggest problems are for churn, and arm our peers with the data necessary to make better decisions.
Because there are some churn reasons that have nothing to do really with things that CSMs would do. So by reinforcing this cross-functional collaboration, we will be able to mitigate churn reasons that stem from the wrong pricing strategy or not an efficient roadmap for our product features.
Sure. I mean, there are some things we can do in customer success that will have a big impact on the customer experience. For example, having a better onboarding, quickly getting to value. No one would argue with that. But once we've done the basics, basic playbooks, basic onboarding, then you start getting into most factors at that point. Most big swing factors that impact churn are not under the control of the customer success leader directly.
I would only say, if anyone that's listening to this video will start thinking outside the box, how can they impact in reducing churn by collaborating better with other departments? Keep track. If you're going to work more closely on pricing strategies or work more closely on enhancement requests with the product team, keep track of your contributions, even quantify them if you can, so you can actually prove the value at the end of the year. Chris, if customer success executives take your coaching, take your guidance, and actually embrace this as part of their own transformation for their customer success program, in working more collaboratively with other teams and creating this new approach to customer success, what have you seen the impact might be on their organization?
A couple things. One is customer success leaders should expect to dramatically increase the influence they have on the executive team. So executive team members expect to receive customer data, both quant and qual, to help them inform their decisions. Customer success leaders should see much bigger swings in retention improvement. With this technique, success leaders should be able to drive significantly more investment in customer success because of the impact to company value. And actually, as a result of that, the CS leader should be able to point to the company's overall value when the company goes to raise more money or has some kind of event. The CS leader will be able to point to all the work that they did to drive retention rates, as a result, having a huge impact on the company's overall value.
If any of those who are watching the video wanted to take this on, what would you recommend, being that you've done it, you've been in their shoes in the past? Where should they start?
First step is the biggest companies have two components, the service and the product. Customer success has a lot of impact on the service. In fact, many times customer support also reports up to the chief customer officer. The first relationship I think to build is the one with product management, because in being able to influence product management effectively helps to reduce risks around competition, helps to reduce risk around product breadth, helps to reduce risk around product uptime and availability, helps to reduce risk around the customer feeling like they're receiving value. When I say build a relationship, I think that's probably a little bit too vague. Specifically, what the product management leader wants is data to help them prioritize which bugs and features need to be built first. The types of data include things like how many customers are impacted, the dollars that are at risk or the upsell dollars available, the health or the risk, the churn risk associated with that request, and also some kind of alignment back to company goals. So how does each request align with one of our top level OKRs? If a success leader can consistently deliver that feedback to product, it will enable product management to make much better decisions. I realize this data is very hard to get, but if the customer success leader can invest the time to do this, they will see enormous improvements in the product with respect to churn.
Chris, thank you so much for your insights today. Those of you in the video that are just starting your career are just going to explain, I think, two terminologies. One, what is a 10K? It's the annual report that the companies release, a public company, to just showcase their financial state. And the other one that Chris was using is an OKR, which stands for Objectives and Key Results. It's a great framework. The sooner you learn it, the better executive you're going to get. Go buy a book about it. Highly encourage you to learn more. I'll include a link to at least one book here in the description if you wanted to. All right, everyone. Hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, go ahead and smash the like button. Ask other people to go watch it. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and sign up for notifications so you don't miss additional content just like this. I'll see you at the next video.